The commandments and precepts one learns as a child can be remembered by rote, but they mean little until there is example. And even then, the example needs to be recognized.
If you're reading this now, odds are I've already left town.
Hi everyone, welcome to Wit and Ink. Today we're diving into the book called The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, and this was published in the year 1955. This is a dystopian science fiction novel that is set in a post-apocalyptic world. I'll be sharing my thoughts on this book while creating a scrapbook spread. So join me as we explore this journey about this book and I share my greatest takeaways with you. Before we get into it, I want to clarify that the review on this book is totally my opinion. Everyone's experience with a book is different and is personalized. So these are my personal thoughts on the Chrysalids, and you can feel free to share your thoughts with me in the comments below. So this story is set in a place called Waknuk, and in this place they believe that there must be purity in everything. So that means in purity in the body, in animals, in plants. There must be complete purity in everything. John Wyndham, who is the author, he tells the story from the point of view of the main character, whose name is David Storm. I hope I'm saying that right. Who has this secret ability that if found out can put his life, if anyone finds out about it, it can put his life in danger. For David, growing up in this society that he's in, he recognizes he's not alone. He does find other people who share the same ability that he has, but as he gets older, it gets increasingly difficult to hide this ability, especially in a place where they say that the norm is the only thing that is allowed, and anything else that doesn't fit the norm is considered a blasphemy and it should be destroyed. We then, as the reader, we follow along with David and his other associates, whether it be his friends or his family, to see how they're able to navigate this world that they're in, where they are very different, and travel along with them on their journey to discover that things are way bigger than they are, and they get to learn more about the nature of the world that they are living in. As we're following David along on his journey, along with the other members of his group, we learn a lot that because of the society of whatnot, they're very fearful and rigid, and because of that, it makes them very, very obsessed with getting rid of anything that is seen as a deviation of the norm. And because that they are so hell-bent on getting rid of any deviation, there's a lot of discrimination. And as you read the book, you will recognize that even though that we're talking about their world, that it parallels really well with what real life situations that happen with us in the real world today. And when I say that, I mean, for example, David and his group, they're persecuted and they have a lot of prejudice, even though that they are not fully understood. And I feel like that is something that happens a lot with us. Just because someone is different, they may have a lot of prejudice or persecution towards that individual, even though because of their difference, they're not necessarily being a problem to someone else. But that's just how it is, and that's how we see it here in Waknuk. As we progress through the book, also we learn a lot about how humanity evolves, and we learn about whether, answer the question of whether we can progress as a people or if we let the fear of what is unknown stop us from that progression. With watching David and his companions in their struggle, it helps to reflect universally our need for acceptance of others, especially those who are different, and how we can find solutions and see those similarities in the real world. I think that this book, The Chrysalids, it was really well written. I especially like how John Wyndham would be describing certain things within a scene without exactly telling us exactly what would have happened. It's more like he would allude to the thought, and we or the reader ourselves has to fill in those blanks in order for us to fully capture what it is that he's telling us. The thing is about it too is that you have to be careful because you can miss those sort of things, especially how I was saying that the people of Waknuk, they said that they don't want anything that's different from the norm. So in the beginning of the book, John Wyndham, he gives us a lot of information, but if we're not careful, it loses its meaning. Like, he gives us kind of like a rundown of how the city works or the town works and what their rules are like. Like, he alludes to the fact that David and his family tree, for example, he mentions some of the people, you know, that are there, but then there are people who are missing, or he mentions he hasn't seen an ant for a very long time. And then as you progress throughout the book, you begin to recognize, oh, well, that's why we weren't seeing this ant, or this is why this person isn't a part of the family, or whatever. And I think that that was really clever, and it made it even more interesting when you did catch on at further along in the book. I also think that he made a lot of really good points in this book too, especially when he was writing as the character Uncle Axel. Uncle Axel makes some really good points and he makes you think, and I really like that aspect of the book too, that it's not just a good story, but there are some points that could be heavy hitting, that makes you reflect not just on David's story, but just, you know, on wider things within the world. There aren't many things that I didn't like about this book. I think the biggest thing probably is the way how the people who were not seen as normal were treated. Not wanting to give too much away, but there's this one girl that David meets in the book. Her name is Sophie, and she has something that is very, very small that wouldn't be considered normal, and it's not even visibly seen at first. But as soon as she's found and they meet up again later in the book, you know, she's living with the other people who've been outcast. They've done things to her. They've not been nice to her, and I think that that's probably one thing that made me not necessarily not like the book, but I just didn't like how the people were being treated, and so that's probably the only thing that I disliked about it. I don't want to say, but yeah. So what can we learn from this book? I think one of the most important things is, firstly, the importance of questioning rigid societal beliefs. If David never questioned these beliefs that he had for his whole life, he may never be able to find out that something was wrong, and he may even end up conflicting himself because of it. I think another thing that we learn in this book is the importance of accepting differences. In Waknuk, a lot of the people were afraid of the differences because they were new and they were unknown to them. And because of that, they were rash and they were harsh, and there was no need for that. And just because there may be a lot of differences among us, whether they're seen or unseen, that doesn't make any person more or less important. The third thing that I learned, especially from David, is that it takes courage to embrace change. Embracing change can be really difficult, especially when it's staring us in the face. And that thing that David had to embrace that was staring him in his face was directly within himself. I think that once David was able to stand up for what he saw, but also with finding out who he truly was, then he was able to become a really strong character. In closing, I think The Chrysalids is one of my newest favorite books, and I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really can't think of anything negative to say about this book. I think the people that would be interested in this book would be those who like dystopian stories, those who like to have stories that talk about social commentary, those who like coming of age stories with a bit of darker themes to it. Anyone who's interested in things like that, they would definitely like this book. So you guys, I'm leaving it up to you now. Would you read this book? What do you guys think about it? Have you read it before? Did it teach you anything? And if so, please leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and to subscribe if you like this kind of content. If you have any friends that you think would like this content, be sure to share this video with them. If you have any other suggestions, I'd love to hear what books you've been reading and what books you think I should cover, so leave that in the comments also. And if you want to get notifications from me, be sure to hit the bell. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys. Bye.
If you're reading this now, odds are I've already left town.